Give me 24 minutes, and I'll teach you how to control your reality. Not through empty affirmations, not through delusional positive thinking, and definitely not through more effort. I'll teach you to do it through physics. The same physics that governs subatomic particles, that determines how light behaves, and that, at this very moment, is responding to the electromagnetic frequency you're transmitting without even realizing it. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change their reality in the hardest way possible, pushing against a river that's actually programmed to flow in their favor. They wake up every morning and immediately start fighting against what they see, check their bank account and feel their chest tighten, look at their relationship and feel frustration rise, observe their body in the mirror and let disappointment take over. And then, loaded with these emotions, they go out into the world trying to fix everything through brute force action. It's like trying to change the movie on the cinema screen by climbing up there and tearing the screen with your bare hands, when the projector is right there behind you, waiting for you to simply change the reel. What I'm about to share with you in the next few minutes isn't a new theory. Quantum mechanics discovered this almost a century ago. Neuroscience confirmed it in recent decades, and ancient spiritual traditions always knew it. They just didn't have the scientific vocabulary to explain it. The quantum field, this invisible matrix of infinite potential that permeates absolutely everything, doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. And what you are isn't determined by your conscious thoughts, isn't determined by your words, and definitely isn't determined by your vision board. It's determined by the electromagnetic signature your heart and brain are transmitting in coherence, or, in most cases, in complete and utter incoherence. Let me be brutally clear about something that will change everything for you. Right now, as you're reading this, your body is generating a measurable electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond your skin. Your heart alone generates an electrical field 60 times greater than your brain, and a magnetic field 100 times stronger. This isn't metaphor. This isn't New Age spirituality. This is pure biophysics documented by the HeartMath Institute. And this field you're generating right now isn't neutral, it carries information. Information about your emotional state, about your deepest beliefs, about the identity you've assumed and solidified through years of repetition. The quantum field reads this information like a scanner reads a barcode, instantly, precisely, and without possibility of error. Now, here's the paradox that will make your brain freeze for a second. To change your reality, you need to completely stop trying to change it. Sounds crazy. It's because you've been programmed since childhood to believe that effort equals results, that you need to sweat to deserve, that you need to suffer to achieve. But at the quantum level, at the level where reality is actually created before it manifests in the physical, effort is resistance. The more you try, the more you transmit the frequency of I don't have. The more you strive, the more you confirm to the field that there's a distance between you and what you desire. This is why people who work themselves to death often progress the least, while others seem to magnetize opportunities without even trying. If you're still with me, if you haven't closed this thinking it's impossible or delusional, then you're ready for the part that will change absolutely everything. But first, I need you to do something. If you're truly committed to learning how to control your reality, if you're tired of being a passenger in your own life, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Because what comes next isn't just information. It's an exact protocol that, when applied, cannot fail to work. The laws of physics don't make exceptions. And you're about to learn how to use them in your favor in a way that 99% of the population will never discover. Not because it's secret, but because it's so counterintuitive that the conditioned mind simply rejects it before even testing it. Science discovered something that should have completely changed how we live, but instead, it got stuck in laboratories and academic papers. In the double-slit experiment, scientists made a discovery that shook the foundations of physics. Picture this: they fire tiny particles, electrons, through two openings. When no one is observing, the electron behaves like a wave and passes through both slits simultaneously. But the moment they place a detector to observe, the electron immediately decides to pass through only one slit, behaving like a solid particle. Think about that carefully. The simple act of observing fundamentally changes how matter behaves. Your consciousness isn't passive, it's an active force that determines which version of reality manifests from the field of infinite possibilities. But here's what nobody's telling you about how this applies to your daily life. You're not just observing your reality, you're observing through a specific filter. And that filter is built by your dominant emotions and crystallized beliefs. When you wake up in the morning already expecting problems, when you automatically assume things will go wrong, when you live in the frequency of scarcity and struggle, you're not just observing reality. You're actually actively collapsing the quantum field into the version of reality that corresponds to that frequency. It's like wearing red-tinted glasses and then complaining that the whole world is red, without realizing that you're the one creating that experience through the very act of filtered observation. Your brain receives about 11 million bits of information per second through your senses, but you're only consciously aware of about 50 bits. What determines which 50 bits reach your consciousness? Your reticular activating system, a network of neurons in your brainstem that functions as a filter. And this filter is programmed by your beliefs and your dominant emotional state. If you live in the frequency of fear, your brain literally filters reality to show only things that confirm there's something to fear. If you live in the frequency of abundance, the same system highlights opportunities and resources that someone in the frequency of scarcity simply can't see, even when they're right in front of them. Now, let's add another element that will make everything click. Your heart has 40,000 neurons. It's literally a second brain with its own intelligence. And when your heart and your cranial brain enter coherence, when they vibrate at the same frequency, something extraordinary happens. Studies from the HeartMath Institute have shown that this coherence creates a measurable state where your intuition increases dramatically, your creativity explodes, and coincidentally, or not so coincidentally, synchronicities start appearing in your life with almost supernatural frequency. Why? Because when you're in coherence, you're transmitting a clear, strong signal to the quantum field, instead of the static noise most people transmit. When their heart wants one thing, their mind thinks another, and their body is stuck in emotional chemicals from the past. And here we reach the crucial point that separates those who can manifest consistently from those stuck in the cycle of why isn't it working for me? Manifestation doesn't happen at the level of thought, it happens at the level of being. You can visualize all day, you can repeat affirmations until you're hoarse, you can create vision boards that cover every wall. But if your body is still living in the emotional chemistry of your old reality, if your cells are still addicted to the hormones of stress, lack, frustration, then you're sending a mixed signal to the field. It's like trying to tune into a radio station while someone keeps changing the dial constantly. The field receives static, noise, incoherence, and responds with more of the same, a confused, inconsistent, frustrating reality. The most fascinating and simultaneously most disturbing part of all this is that your body doesn't know the difference between an experience you're having and one you're vividly imagining. Neuroscientists prove this by connecting people to brain scanners. When they imagine playing piano, the same brain areas activated as if they were physically playing. When they imagined eating a lemon, their bodies produce saliva. This means that every time you're mentally reliving a past situation, every time you're projecting anxiety about the future, your body is literally living that experience and producing the corresponding chemistry. You're unknowingly addicting your cells to specific emotional states, and addicted cells will always want more of the same drug. This is why change feels so hard. It's not just mental, it's a real chemical dependency that needs to be broken with compassion and patience. The biggest mistake you can make when trying to control your reality is believing you need to convince the universe of something. Stop and observe what you've been doing so far. You negotiate with reality, you beg, you bargain, you try to prove you deserve it, you strive to demonstrate you're worthy. But the quantum field isn't a judge you need to impress. It's not a parent you need to please. It's not a boss you need to convince. The field is a perfect, impersonal, precise mirror that simply reflects back the dominant frequency you're holding. And the frequency of needing to convince is always, without exception, the frequency of doubt. You only try to convince when you're not sure. You only negotiate when you believe you might lose. You only beg when you come from a place of powerlessness. Let me shatter an illusion that's probably been holding you back for years. The universe isn't testing you. This idea that you need to go through trials to deserve what you want is a complete distortion of how reality works. The quantum field has no moral agenda, no preferences, no judgments. It responds to physics, pure and simple. If you leave a ball at the top of a hill, it will roll down, not because it deserves to get to the bottom, not because it proved its worth, but because gravity exists and works consistently. The quantum field operates with the same relentless neutrality. It delivers what you vibrate, not what you deserve according to some cosmic moral code that doesn't exist. There's a phrase people love to repeat. The universe always conspires in your favor. Technically true, but profoundly misunderstood. The universe conspires to confirm exactly who you're being, to validate the frequency you're maintaining, to mirror the internal state you cultivate. If you're vibrating at the frequency of victim, the universe will conspire to bring more situations where you can be a victim. If you're vibrating at the frequency of empowered creator, it will conspire to bring opportunities for creation. It's not personal. It's not karma. It's not punishment or reward. It's physics. It's cause and effect at the most fundamental level of reality. And here's where things get even more interesting and disturbing. Your subconscious, which controls 95% of your behavior and decisions, doesn't speak the language of words. It speaks the language of emotions, images, bodily sensations. You can repeat "I am rich" 1,000 times a day, but if every time you say it, your body contracts with the feeling of lying, if your chest tightens with the anxiety of not having money for bills, if your breathing gets shallow with the fear of scarcity, then what you're actually programming into your subconscious is, "I'm lying about being rich because I'm poor." The subconscious doesn't hear your words, it feels your emotional truth. And it's this emotional truth that's being transmitted to the field 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now I'm going to tell you something that might sound almost cruel in its simplicity, but I need you to hear this with compassion for yourself. The reason most people can't manifest consistently isn't because the process is difficult. It's because they're emotionally addicted to their current identity. And this isn't your fault, it's biology. Your body is literally addicted to the chemicals produced by familiar emotional states. If you've lived years in anxiety, your cells have developed specific receptors for anxiety hormones. They expect their daily dose, they demand it. And when you try to shift to a state of peace and trust, your body goes into withdrawal. It will do everything to bring you back to the familiar state. It will create worried thoughts. It will find reasons to be afraid. It will look for problems where none exist. Not because the universe is against you, but because your own cells are fighting to maintain their daily dose of the emotional drug they know. But here's the liberating part. If you identified with these patterns, take a deep breath now. This doesn't make you a failure, it makes you profoundly human. These are programs, not your true identity. And the first step to rewriting any code is knowing it exists. You didn't consciously choose these patterns, many of them were installed before you even had the critical capacity to question them. But now, with this awareness, you have the power to choose differently. This is exactly why people sabotage their own success when it starts appearing. It's not fear of success itself, it's the body panicking because it's losing its reliable source of familiar emotional chemicals. The person who always lived in drama suddenly has a peaceful life, and doesn't know what to do with peace. The one who always lived in scarcity suddenly has abundance and feels strangely uncomfortable. The body will fight to return to the known, even when the known is suffering, because at least it's predictable, and the primitive brain interprets predictability as safety, even when that predictability is pain. You're about to learn something that will make all other manifestation techniques look like amateur attempts to manipulate reality. What I'm about to share now is the exact protocol for consciously collapsing the timeline you desire. And it's not what you're expecting. We're not talking about traditional visualization. We're not talking about forced gratitude. We're not talking about fake it till you make it. We're talking about literally hacking your reality's operating system through a precise understanding of how time works in the quantum field. Because here's the secret that changes everything. Linear time is an illusion created by how your brain processes information. In the quantum field, past, present, and future exist simultaneously. All possible versions of you exist now. The version that has everything you want isn't in the future, it's on a different frequency, accessible right now. The first step of the protocol is what I call conscious death of the old identity. You can't enter a new timeline carrying the frequency of the old one. It's impossible. It's like trying to enter a new house carrying all the furniture from the old house. So every morning, before you even open your eyes, before your brain has a chance to load the default program of who you think you are, you'll internally declare, "I'm not who I was yesterday." Simple as that, but don't confuse simplicity with superficiality. When you do this consistently, you're literally preventing habitual neural circuits from firing automatically. You're creating what neuroscience calls a refractory period, a sacred space where new patterns can be installed. The second step happens immediately after the first. With your eyes still closed, you go straight to the end. Not the middle, not the process, the end. If it's financial abundance you're creating, you don't visualize receiving money. You feel the deep relief of never having to think about money again. If it's a relationship, you don't imagine meeting someone. You feel the emotional security of already being deeply loved. The difference is critical. When you go to the process, you're still in the timeline where it hasn't happened. When you go straight to the end, you're accessing the frequency of the timeline where it's already reality. Your brain doesn't know the difference, and more importantly, the quantum field doesn't question. It simply responds. Now comes the part that most people completely mess up. After accessing the final state, you don't stay there desperately trying to hold on. Trying to hold on is admitting it can escape, and admitting it can escape is confessing it's not real. Instead, you do something much more powerful. You internally declare, "It is done," and then you completely let go. You open your eyes and go live your day without thinking about it even once more. This isn't negligence, this is mastery. When you plant a seed, you don't keep digging it up to see if it's growing. You plant, you water with your aligned actions, and you trust the process. The quantum field works the same way, but infinitely faster when there's no anxious interference. And here's where the protocol becomes truly revolutionary. During the day, whenever you catch yourself thinking about what you want to manifest, you don't reinforce the desire. Desiring is confirming absence. Instead, you do what I call casual confirmation. You think about it the same way you think about something you already have. When you think about your bed, you don't wish you had a bed, you simply know you have one. When a thought about your manifestation arises, you treat it with the same casualness. Oh yes, that. No excessive emotion, no anxiety, no need. Just a calm acknowledgement of something that already exists in your reality. But the protocol isn't complete without understanding the moments of greatest power. There are two windows during the day when the veil between dimensions is thinnest, when your ability to imprint new programming on the field is exponentially amplified. The first is in the moments just before sleep, when your brainwaves naturally slow from beta to alpha and then theta. The second is right after waking, when you're making the reverse journey. In these moments, your subconscious is most receptive, the critical part of your conscious mind is offline, and you have direct access to reality's operating system. If you waste these moments scrolling on your phone or jumping out of bed to enter the chaos of the day, you're literally throwing away your moments of greatest creative power. Use them wisely, with intention, with reverence for the power you have. There are invisible forces working against your manifestation right now, and the most disturbing part is that these forces are you. Not the conscious version of you reading this now, but the fragmented parts of your psyche operating in the shadows, programmed so long ago, even remember when they started. I'm going to expose now the 5 silent saboteurs that keep 99% of people trapped in a reality they say they don't want, but are secretly choosing every second. And before your mind tries to defend itself, saying this doesn't apply to me, know that the more resistance you feel to what I'm about to say, the more likely it's true for you. But remember, identifying these patterns isn't to create guilt, it's to create freedom. The first saboteur is what I call checking addiction. You set an intention in the morning, feel powerful for 5 minutes, and then spend the rest of the day looking for evidence that it's working. You obsessively check your email, you analyze every interaction looking for signs, you keep measuring whether you're closer or farther. Every time you check, you're transmitting doubt. It's like planting a seed and then digging up the soil every hour to see if it's growing. Obsessive checking isn't just counterproductive, it's an energetic confession that you don't trust the process. And the quantum field, which responds to frequency and not words, receives this message loud and clear. I don't believe it's happening, and true to its nature as a perfect mirror, it reflects exactly that back. The second saboteur is infinitely more subtle and infinitely more destructive. It's the habit of retelling the old story. You say you want a new reality, but spend hours a day narrating the old one. It's always been hard for me. You tell anyone who'll listen. People like me don't get that lucky, you repeat internally. I've tried everything and nothing works, you declare as if it's an immutable fact. Every time you tell the old story, you're literally instructing your cells to continue producing the same reality. Your brain doesn't distinguish between what's happened and what you're narrating. To it, retelling is reliving, and reliving is reinforcing the same neural circuits that created the reality you say you want to change. The third saboteur will make you squirm with recognition. It's the compulsive need to share your plans before they manifest. You have a vision, feel the energy of possibility, and immediately want to tell someone. But here's what happens energetically when you do this. First, you dissipate the creative tension that was building. It's like opening the pressure cooker before the food is ready. Second, and more devastating, you invite others' doubt into your field. Even if they smile and say that's great, their energy is saying let's see if you can do it. And third, you receive a dopamine hit from social recognition that temporarily satisfies the need, reducing your internal motivation to actually manifest. The fourth saboteur is the most treacherous because it disguises itself as virtue. It's the martyr complex, the secret identity of being someone who sacrifices, who suffers, who puts everyone else first. You might consciously say you want abundance, but subconsciously you're attached to the identity of being the good person who doesn't need much, who can live with little, who isn't materialistic. This martyr identity is so deeply intertwined with your sense of self-worth that manifesting real abundance would mean losing who you believe you are. And between having what you want and keeping your familiar identity, the subconscious always, without exception, chooses the familiar identity. But listen, you can be a good person and have abundance. One doesn't exclude the other. The fifth and final saboteur is simultaneously the most obvious and the most denied. It's continuing to do the same things expecting different results. You wake up at the same time, grab your phone before even getting out of bed, scroll the feed the same way, have coffee with the same thoughts, drive the same route, having the same emotional reactions to traffic. You're an automaton repeating the same program day after day, and then wonder why reality doesn't change. Einstein called this insanity, but I call it something worse. It's arrogance disguised as routine. It's the arrogance of believing keep everything the same internally, and somehow the external will magically transform. The quantum field doesn't respond to your Sunday night intentions. It responds to your Monday morning habits. If you identified with one or all of these saboteurs, breathe. This doesn't make you broken or doomed to failure. It makes you conscious enough to see the patterns that were operating in the shadows, and awareness is the first step to change. These saboteurs aren't enemies to be destroyed. They're parts of you that believe they're protecting you. Thank them for their service, and gently inform them you no longer need that protection. You're ready for something greater. Now we've reached the moment where everything you've learned either crystallizes into action, or dissolves into yet another interesting piece of information to and forget. The difference between those who transform reality and those who just collect knowledge is what happens in the next 60 seconds after finishing this content. I'm going to give you a protocol so precise, so surgical in its effectiveness, that your only job will be not to complicate it with the human need to add complexity where it's unnecessary. The quantum field responds to clarity, not complexity. It responds to decision, not deliberation. And it responds now, not when you feel ready, not when conditions are perfect, not when you have more knowledge. Readiness is an illusion your mind uses to keep you safe in the familiar prison of the known. The decree you're about to make isn't a request, isn't a hope, isn't an attempt. It's a timeline shift declaration as definitive as a pilot's decision to change flight route. When a pilot decides to change route, he doesn't question whether the plane will obey the commands. He simply enters the new coordinates and trusts the physics. You're about to do the same thing with your reality, but first you need to understand a truth that goes against everything you've been taught about manifestation. You're not trying to attract anything. Attraction implies something is far away and needs to come to you. In the quantum field, everything already exists, all versions, all possibilities, all outcomes. You're simply tuning into a station that's already broadcasting. Here's the decree, and I want you to feel the weight of it as you read, because the moment you accept it completely, not partially, not conditionally, but completely, the change has already begun. I revoke all permission I gave, consciously or unconsciously, for the current reality to keep repeating. I declare that the version of me living the reality I desire already exists, and I choose to synchronize with that frequency now. Not tomorrow, not when I'm ready, not when circumstances allow. Now, it is done. When you make this decree with every cell of your body, not just with your mind, something shifts in the field. It's subtle at first, like a change in atmospheric pressure before a storm, but it's irreversible. And now, the 24-hour challenge that will seal this change. For the next 24 hours, you're going to live as if absolutely nothing in your old reality matters. You'll wake up tomorrow and act as if you just arrived from another dimension where everything you want is already normal. You won't check if it's working, because checking is doubting. You won't look for signs, because looking is admitting absence. You'll simply live as the person who already has all of this lives. How does this person have coffee? In a rush and anxiety, or with calm and presence? How does this person respond to messages? With desperation and need, or with clarity and purpose? How does this person move through the world? Apologizing for existing, or naturally occupying their space? The secret of this challenge isn't to pretend, because pretending still carries the frequency of falsehood. It's to embody so completely that your body forgets there's another option. When you were a child and played make-believe, you weren't pretending you were experiencing alternative realities with such conviction that your body responded as if it were real. You cried real tears when your imaginary character got hurt. You felt real fear from the invisible monster. This ability wasn't lost. It was just buried under layers of skepticism and rationalization. The next 24 hours are about resurrecting this ability, but this time with the precision of an adult who understands the laws that govern reality. And here's the part that will test your understanding of everything I've shared. During these 24 hours, when the old reality knocks on your door, and it will knock, because it still has momentum, you won't fight it. Fighting gives it power. Instead, you'll observe it with the same neutrality and watch clouds passing in the sky. Interesting, you'll think the echo of the old frequency is still reverberating, but you won't identify with it, won't create a story about it, won't use it as evidence that it's not working. You'll continue transmitting the new frequency with the same consistency. Heart continues beating, even when you're not paying attention. Because reality shift isn't an event, it's a sustained decision until the field has no choice but to mirror back. And it always, absolutely always, mirrors. What you just absorbed isn't just another manifestation technique to add to your collection. It's a complete recoding of how you understand and interact with reality. Most people will consume this information, feel a temporary wave of possibility, and then return to old patterns before the sun even sets. But you're not most people, or you wouldn't have made it this far. You're someone who's ready to stop asking reality for permission and start commanding it. The quantum field isn't waiting for you to be ready, isn't waiting for you to be perfect, isn't waiting for you to deserve it. It's waiting for just one thing, a clear, coherent signal of what you choose to experience. The final truth I need to leave you with is this: reality control was never about doing more, it was always about being different. And being different isn't a gradual process of improvement, it's an instant decision of discontinuity with who you were a second ago. Every moment offers this opportunity for discontinuity, but the conditioned mind convinces you to wait for a special moment, a divine sign, an external confirmation. While you wait, life passes, opportunities dissolve, and you continue transmitting the same frequency as always, getting the same results as always, confirming the same limitations as always. If you're truly ready to implement what you learned here, subscribe to the channel now, turn on all notifications, and most importantly, leave a comment declaring, "I accept the decree." The next 24 hours start now. Don't do this as an empty gesture. By declaring publicly, you're creating your first physical evidence in the timeline you just chose. You're anchoring your decision in the material world. Do it now. Because the moment you declare publicly, you're collapsing the wave of possibility into a single timeline, the one where you've already changed. The quantum field is listening. It always has been. The only question that remains is, which frequency will you choose to transmit from this moment forward?